Hey everyone, I'm here with Little Vulcan, and we're going to be talking about theory crafting lists for the Salamanders in 11th edition 40k. I haven't played a full game of 11th edition, to be fair. This is all theory crafting. So with 11th edition, we get detachment points that we can use on different detachments at different point levels, 1,000 points, 2,000 points. I threw together a 2,000 point list based on my old 2,000 point list in 10th edition. With the new detachment point system, it lets me take the Salamanders detachment plus one detachment point list, or detachment rather. So I put together Alexandria's Funeral Pyre, and I'm going to be going over the lists that I've put together. And I'm going to be going over the units and the synergies and how I sort of see this list playing out on the tabletop. Again, I haven't played a full game of 11th edition. I haven't brought my Salamanders out yet. So this is all theory until I put it into practice one of these weekends coming up. So it's going to be a lot of just pictures and me doing voiceover and just pretty much reading what's on the screen. So if you're not into that kind of video, this is your chance to get out of here now. But it seems to work for Auspex Tactics, and he's way better than me. I'm not comparing myself to him. Anyway, enjoy. This is a 2,000 points list I put together. So this is Alexandria's Funeral Pyre. It's a Space Marines list that I put together, combining the Forgefather Seekers detachment and the Librarius Conclave detachment. Forgefather Seekers gives Purge the Foe as its disposition, and then Librarius gives the Reconnaissance. It is 2,000 points on the nose. It's crazy. So the Space Marine Army rules are Oath of Moment. So in your command phase, you select one enemy unit, and then during that turn, you can re-roll your hit rolls, and then since they're Salamanders, they're Codex compliant, you get +1 to the wound roll as well. Now, Forgefather Seekers is almost identical to Firestorm Assault, in that it gives ranged weapons in your army the assault ability, meaning you can advance and still shoot, and then whenever you're shooting something within 12 inches, you add 1 to the strength characteristic of that attack, which you will see that all of our flamers have a 12-inch range. And then it is tied around Vulcanhistan being in your army. If he's in your army, it gives you a bonus to your Infernus Marines, and then you'll see on his datasheet, it also gives him another bonus. They act almost like battle line, almost like regular intercessors with flamers, except they don't have objective secured. Now, the Librarius Conclave gives the Psychic Disciplines as its detachment rule. So at the start of each battle round, you select one of these Psychic Disciplines that affect your Psyker units. So I have 2 Psyker units in my army. It's really only affecting 2 units, but they come in pretty handy. Biomancy Discipline adds 2 to your movement characteristic. Divination Discipline gives your unit reroll hit rolls of 1 and reroll wound rolls of 1. Pyromancy Discipline gives you ranged attacks within 12 inches of that unit, +1 AP. Super handy with the flamers. Telekinesis Discipline, so ranged attacks that are coming your way will have -1 to your strength, gives you a little bit more durability. And then Telepathy, your unit's attacks can ignore modifiers to ballistic skill, weapon skill, and hit rolls. That won't be as handy as flamers have torrent, auto hit, but it will come in handy on your other stuff. The enhancements I only took 1 enhancement from the Librarius Conclave, and it is Fusillade. And I put that on my Terminator Librarian. I'll go over his unit in a minute here. That gives its ranged attacks, anti-monster, anti-vehicle 5 up, and then if you select Pyromancy Discipline at the beginning of the turn, they also have sustained hits 1. It won't stack with my Librarian Terminator. I don't think so. I'll have to double check if that stacks with its normal already gives sustained hits 1. So then I noticed building this list that I took 3 other enhancements on top of that one, so it gives me 4 enhancements. I don't know if that is new or if that is just something in the app that is a bug. Either way, I took all 3 that I could, and they're all coming from Forgefather Seekers. So the first one is Immolator, adds 1 to the attack characteristics of torrent weapons. You'll see later on here, my Infernus Marines, normally they have d6 attacks each. It'll be d6 plus 1 attacks. Took the War-Tempered Artifice as well, gave it to my Captain in Gravis armor, and it adds 3 to the strength characteristics of his melee weapons. And then I also added Forged in Battle, gave that to my Lieutenant, so then once per turn, I can make a hit roll or a saving throw in that unit and just straight up turn it into a 6. So that's either a guaranteed hit or a guaranteed save once per turn. Stratagems. The core stratagems that really come into play with this list are Fire Overwatch, of course, because Overwatch, normally you would have to roll a 6 on your shooting to hit, but torrent weapons auto hit. So you don't even have to roll that hit. Guarantees you some hits in your Overwatch. They did change it a little bit from 10th edition to 11th, so you can only Overwatch at the end of the opponent's movement phase instead of like at any time before or after they make a move or before or after they make a charge. Now it's just at the end of the movement phase. Rapid Ingress, I've got a drop pod in this list. I've also got my Terminators. Also at the end of the opponent's movement phase, I can Deep Strike one of my units in if they have the Deep Strike ability. Stratagems that come from Forgefather's Seekers. Wrathful Inferno. If I have an infantry unit that's in combat, normally you can make a fallback move, but if you make a fallback move, you normally wouldn't be able to shoot. This one, if I get somebody caught up in combat, I can have them fall back, and then they can still shoot. So Burning Vengeance is a stratagem that you use in your opponent's shooting phase. If they shoot at your transport, and you have a unit embarked in that transport, you can immediately disembark them and then shoot back, if they're within range and an eligible target, of course. So Blazing Earth, at the start of your opponent's charge phase, one of your units that has a torrent weapon, which is quite a few of them, select an enemy unit other than monsters or vehicles, within 12 inches and visible. Until the end of the phase, you subtract 2 from their charge roll. So you could possibly stop somebody from charging into combat with one of your units that you don't want to be in combat. The big dangerous one, Immolation Protocols. In your shooting phase, you select one of your units, and then until the end of that phase, all the torrent weapons in that unit have devastating wounds. So you roll a 6 on your wound roll, that's a dev wound, they can't even save against that wound. So this will be useful when you are shooting at an enemy with your flamer weapons, and your strength maybe isn't high enough to wound, so you'd be wounding on like 6s, wounding on 5s. This gives you a chance to do some devastating wounds that they can't even save against. So you can straight up melt a tank if you roll enough 6s, when normally you would have to roll a 6 to wound anyway. So Crucible Battle is another one. During your shooting or your fight phase, one of your infantry units, when you make an attack against the closest eligible target within 6 inches, you add +1 to the wound. It is good in close combat with an enemy who isn't your Oath of Moment target. Because remember, Oath of Moment already gives you +1 to wound, so it wouldn't stack with Oath of Moment. You couldn't get +2 to your wound. It's good for if you already wipe out your Oath of Moment target, and you've got an extra command point to spare, and you want to do a little bit of extra damage. So let's start with my first attached unit, and this is, of course, my Warlord, Vulcan Histan, and I have him leading the company heroes. This is like my Anvil unit. I will park him on an objective and dare the enemy to try to take him out. This is big Vulcan Histan. I showed you little Vulcan at the beginning of the video, and he got his model glow up. And then the Ancient in the company heroes, I painted up his cloak in the style of the Rogue Trader, like the original color scheme of the Salamanders, sort of a throwback. I'm glad that I didn't paint my entire army like this, because this was a nightmare. I'm not super proud of the coloring. So Vulcan Histan. 6-inch move, toughness 4, 2-up save, 5 wounds, 6-up leadership, OC 1. He's got a 4-up invulnerable save. He also has a 5-up feel no pain, normally. His ranged weapons, he's got a bolt pistol. Like almost all Space Marines have bolt pistols. But this one hits on 2s. You're probably not going to be using it. So what you're really going to be using here is the Gauntlet of the Forge. It's got a 12-inch range because it's a flamer. D6 plus 3 attacks. It is Torrent, so it's auto-hitting. And then Strength 6, but with the detachment rule, it's really Strength 7. Keep that in mind. AP minus 1, damage 1. And then like all flamers, it ignores cover. And it's a pistol weapon, so you can shoot it in close quarters. So, really, you wouldn't be using the bolt pistol at all. His melee weapon, he's got the Spear of Vulcan, one of Vulcan's relics. 6 attacks hitting on 2, strength 6, AP minus 2, damage 2, also with dev wounds. Oh, I misspoke earlier. He has a 6-up feel no pain, normally. So he's got a couple abilities. His first one is, in your shooting phase, you select an enemy unit within 24 inches invisible to him. Until the end of the phase, every time a friendly model makes a ranged attack with a Torrent or Melt weapon against that enemy, you can re-roll the wound roll, which is pretty crazy. So you're auto-hitting and then re-rolling your wounds. Pretty good chance you're going to be wounding stuff that you're shooting with Torrent or Melt weapons, which are most of the models in this army. And then his other ability, Seeker of the Unfound. So whenever he's set up on the battlefield, you pick an objective marker, you mark it, and then whenever he's within range of that marker, he has an OC of 10, leadership of 5 up, and then a Feel No Pain 4 up. So then that makes it super hard to take him off that objective. Flavor-wise, he is the Forgefather of the Salamanders. He's on a quest to recover the relics of Vulcan, and he is searching a thing, and you don't want to take him off that thing, because that's his objective. He also has Inspiring Commander, so this is the other synergy with the Infernus Marines. So other than giving them the Seeker's Companions rule from the Detachment rule, which lets them do an action after it advanced, or shoot and still do an action, they also have an objective control of 2 while they're not battle shocked. So they have the same character, they have the same OC as a battle line unit. Now he's running with the company heroes that have a similar stat profile, 6-inch move, toughness 4, 3-up save, 4 wounds each, 6-up leadership, OC of 1. It's a 4-model unit. They each have some different weapons. So the Ancient has a bolt rifle, the 2 veterans have a master-crafted bolt rifle, and then the master-crafted heavy bolter. They've all got close combat weapons, which normally aren't that great, but they do have 5 attacks each, which is kind of nice. And then the champion in the unit that has that cool sword has a master-crafted power weapon that's 6 attacks, hitting on 2, strength 5, AP minus 2, damage 2 with precision, so he can precision out, kill some characters. So you have the Ancient with the banner, so as long as he's in the unit, you've got +1 to OC, so they all have, actually all have OC too, while he's still in there. Also, while they're being led by a character, any incoming attacks have -1 to wound them, so they're a little bit harder to wound. Now the funny thing is they have to be led to even take part in the battle. I guess if your leader is precisioned out and killed, they would still be able to fight and stuff, but then they wouldn't be -1 to be wounded, so they're easier to wound. These are my company heroes here, behind Vulcan. Moving on to the second attached unit, this is the Aggressor Squad with Flamestorm Gauntlets, and they're being led by the Captain in Gravis armor. I gave this Captain the War-Tempered Artifice. I'll show you his weapon profiles here in a second. This is the Captain. Stat line. So we're in Gravis armor, so we have a little bit less move. They're chunky boys, so they're not as fast as normal Marines. So they have a 5-inch move, but they have a toughness of 6, 3-up save. He has 6 wounds, leadership 6-up, OC 1, 4-up, invuln save. Ranged weapons, I gave him Bolt Storm Gauntlet, and then he has 2 melee weapons. He's got his Power Fist and the Relic Chainsword. Now, the Relic Chainsword has extra attacks, so normally, if you have multiple melee weapon profiles, you can only pick one of them. With extra attacks, that means he's fighting with both of them. So you get him into combat, he's punching a dude with his fist and then chainswording somebody in the same move. And then with that War-Tempered Artifice, it makes his Power Fist strength 11, and then that chainsword strength 7. So it bumps up his wounding ability there. Now, like other captains, he has Rites of Battle, so once per battle round, if you use a stratagem on his unit, you can reduce the cost of it by 1 command point. So that big 2 command point cost Immolation Protocols only cost 1 to use, give him dev wounds. Refuse to yield, so whenever he's being attacked, you have the damage characteristic of that attack, to just this model, not the whole unit. He's running with Aggressors, pretty much the same stat profile, 3 wounds each. They've got Flamestorm Gauntlets, so they've got Flamers. D6 plus 1 attacks each. Torrent auto hit. Strength 4, but you're shooting within 12, so Strength 5. Ignoring cover, because they're Flamers. And they're also twin-linked, so that means you can re-roll the wound rolls on them, natively. So their ability, Close Quarters Firepower, whenever they're making a ranged attack against the closest eligible target, which usually they would be, within 12 inches, you usually don't have too many to choose from, but closest eligible target, you improve the armor penetration of that by 1. For their melee weapons, they've got Twin Power Fists, so they've got Twin Power Fists with Flamers bolted on underneath them. 3 attacks hitting on 3s, Strength 8, AP minus 2, damage 2. Also twin-linked, so you're re-rolling the wounds for your shooting, you're re-rolling the wounds in your melee. I really like these guys. I typically use them, I think of them as more of a flex option. The Gravis armor is higher toughness, but it's still just a 3-up save, and they don't have an invuln save, so they're not super durable. But they can do some crazy shooting, and they can do some pretty hardcore melee. Not the best at either of those, but they're threatening in the right situation. Under our next attached unit, we've got Adrax Agatone, Captain of the 3rd Company, which, spoiler for the books that I'm reading right now, he's only a sergeant. So eventually he takes over 3rd Company. I don't know when. I'm not the lore expert. I need to finish reading my Salamanders novel. That's an aside. Anyway, he's got a lieutenant attached to him for support, and then he's running with the Blade Guard veterans. This is Adrax Agatone. So he's got a similar profile. 6-inch move, toughness 4, 2-up save, 5 wounds, 6-up leadership OC 1, 4-up invuln save. For his weapons, he's got his Hand Flamer, Dracus. He's got D6 plus 3 attacks, Torrent auto hitting, Strength 4, but actually Strength 5 because of the attachment. AP minus 1, damage 1, ignoring cover. Also a pistol, so you can shoot it in combat as well. And then his melee weapon, Malleus Noctum, the Hammer of Nocturne. 5 attacks, hitting on 2s. Strength 10, AP minus 2, damage 3. It's a pretty crazy melee weapon. He's definitely more melee built than shooting. So his abilities. Unto the Anvil. So whenever he's leading a unit, and that unit's in melee combat, you can re-roll the wound rolls in melee. Rerolls are handy. There's a lot of, you'll see that pop up quite a bit. There's a lot of rerolls in this list, which some people don't like. I personally enjoy it. Lord of the Pyroclasts, so whenever he's in engagement range, you have the OC characteristic of models in the enemy unit. So say you're fighting in melee combat over an objective, and you're still in combat, you don't wipe them out in one turn. It's going to have the OC, you're going to be in control of that objective, more than likely. He's got the lieutenant that is backing him up as a support role. Here's his stats, 6-inch move, toughness 4, 3-up save, 4 wounds, 6-up, OC 1. He's running with the Neo-Volkite pistol. Dev wounds on his pistol, hitting on 2s, no AP. Strength 5, but strength 6 because he's shooting within 12. And then he's got a mastercrafted power weapon. Normally it's represented as like a sword. The Blade Guard all have mastercrafted power weapons as well. Modeling wise, I didn't paint up another sword. I took one of the lightning claws from my old assault Terminators and made that his mastercrafted power weapon. So his abilities, he gives the unit that he's fighting with lethal hits. So whenever you roll a hit roll, if you roll a 6, it'll automatically wound. You don't even have to roll a wound roll for it. And then target priority, his unit is eligible to shoot and declare a charge a turn in which it fell back. So you get stuck in combat, you can fall back, shoot at him, and then charge back into combat. I gave him a storm shield as well. It used to be that you couldn't run him with Blade Guard unless he did have the storm shield build. But it's just better, gives him a 4-up invuln save like everybody else in his unit, so he's not the only one with just a normal 3-up save. That would be embarrassing. This is my most versatile unit. I took one of my extra intercessors and magnetized his arms so I can swap out any of the builds. So his Neo-Volkite mastercrafted weapons I can swap with a heavy bolter and a different weapon. I even magnetized the shield on his back, so I can take it off when he is running with somebody else. Give him a little cloak, too. It's hard to see in that picture. So they're running with the Blade Guard veterans. They've got your usual Space Marine profile with a 4-up invulnerable save because they have Iron Halos. Ranged weapons, nothing to write home about. Heavy bolt pistols, and then the Sergeant has a Neo-Volkite pistol. And then they've got their mastercrafted power weapons in melee, which are their swords, their blades. 4 attacks hitting on 3, strength 5, AP 2, damage 2. Now they're running with Adrax Agatone, who gives them reroll wounds in melee, which is where they want to be. So they're a whole blender. Their special ability as Blade Guard is in the fight phase. They can pick one of the following to apply. So you can pick swords or shields. So if you pick swords, you can reroll hit rolls of 1. If you pick shields, you can re-roll your invulnerable save of 1. Most of the time you'll be picking shields because you'll want to be fighting your Oath of Moment target, which gives you re-roll hits altogether instead of just re-roll hits of 1. But it is an option if you're fighting against your not Oath of Moment target. You can take swords and re-roll hit rolls of 1. These are the Blade Guard. I'm all one of the guys to be dual wielding. He doesn't get an extra attack. I just think it was fun. Under our next unit, now this is where we're finally getting into the book burning. I've got a Librarian with the Immolator enhancement, which gives +1 to the torrent weapons of the unit that he's attached to. Attached, I gave him an Apothecary for support, and then he's running with 10 Infernus Marines. Now this is my Librarian. Really, he's a Phobos Librarian, but I like the model so much. He's one of the earlier models that I bought. And I really dig him, and I just run him as a regular Librarian, and nobody has been like, oh, that's not the correct model. So when we move on to the datasheet, you can see he has different armor. Standard Space Marine profile, ranged weapons, he's got his psychic attacks. He also has a bolt pistol, I just kind of didn't include it here. But he's got his psychic attacks as well. D6 attacks, hitting on 3, strength 5, AP -1, damage 3. Shooting within 12, so half the distance of that would be strength 6. You can do the regular Witchfire or the focused Witchfire, which gives you a hazardous roll, but it also has dev wounds, +1 to the AP, +1 to the strength. Hazardous isn't as bad in 11th edition, so it could turn out pretty okay. He's got his force weapon as well. 4 attacks hitting on 3, strength 6, AP -1, D3 damage. Psychic. Now the psychic keyword just tells you it's a psychic attack. His abilities. As a Librarian, he's got a psychic hood, so his unit has a 4-up feel no pain against psychic attacks that are coming in. And then Mental Fortress. He's got a 4-up invulnerable save on that unit. Says while he's leading it, big change from 10th to 11th is that leaders always lead, they said, so now he'll have a 4-up invulnerable save all the time as long as he starts the battle attached to a unit. This is my Apothecary. He's coming along for the ride. He's got a standard Space Marine profile. So as an apothecary, he's got his Absolver bolt pistol, of course. And then he's also got a reductor pistol, which is pretty much a handheld melt-a-gun. You'll want to use that while you're locked up in combat because it's a pistol. You can shoot it in close quarters. AP -4 is crazy. That if they don't have an invulnerable save, they're screwed on their regular save, pretty much. Melee weapon, just close combat weapon, nothing to write home about. His abilities as a support unit. So, while he's in that unit, in your command phase, you can return a destroyed model that isn't a character model to that unit. So you get shot at, or you fight somebody, and they kill one of your Space Marines. Next command phase, he's still alive, he can bring somebody back. Gene Seed Recovery, so whenever the bodyguard unit's wiped out, you roll a d6 on a 2-up, you gain a command point. They're running with the Infernus Squad. Standard Space Marine profile on these guys, except remember we have Volkenheistan in our army, so they have OC2, and they can do a bunch of extra cool stuff. Ranged weapons, standard bolt pistols. Big one is their Pyre Blaster. This is their big flamer. D6 attacks. The Librarian has Immolator, so it's D6 plus 1 attacks. Torrent, auto-hitting. Shooting within 12, so strength 6, not just strength 5. AP -1, damage 1, ignoring cover. They've also just got close combat weapons, not a big melee unit. So their ability, Incendiary Terror. So whenever you shoot an infantry unit with your Pyre Blaster, after that, they have to take a battle shock test at -1. They can cause them to be battle shocked, which is pretty hardcore in 11th edition now. So a lot of people, a lot of lists I see run multiple, either 2 10-man blocks, a couple 5-man blocks. They're good for doing actions. With Volkenheistan, they can advance, do an action, or do an action, still shoot. They're good for that. They work similar to intercessors, except they don't have objective secured. Cool little synergy. Why I'm running them with the Librarian. You can do the Pyromancy Discipline, add 1 to their AP, so when they're shooting within 12. So, that makes their Flamers strength 6 because of their detachment, AP -2. Our next little bookworm unit here, I have my Terminator Librarian. I gave him the Fusillade enhancement from the Librarius Conclave. It's the only one I'm using. And then I attached him to some Terminators. Gave those Terminators chain fists. One of them has a heavy flamer. The Sergeant has his power weapon. This is the Terminator Librarian from the Leviathan box. Cool model, I liked him. I didn't do up his base like I did the other ones. Terminator stat line. They're Terminators, so they move a little bit slower. 5-inch move, toughness 5, 2-up save though. 5 wounds on him, 6-up leadership OC1 with a 4-up invulnerable save. Ranged weapons, he's got the same profile for his psychic attacks, like a regular psyker. He's also got that storm bolter attached to him. Rapid fire 2, so if you're within 12 inches, that's 4 attacks. Hitting on 3s, it'd be strength 5, shooting within 12 instead of strength 4. He's got that force weapon, got that cool fire axe. 4 attacks hitting on 3s, strength 6, AP -1, D3 damage. He's also got a psychic hood because he's a Librarian. And then he has the Veil of Time. So while he's leading a unit, the weapons in that unit have sustained hits 1. He's leading the Terminators. That same profile, 5-inch move, toughness 5, 2-up save, 3 wounds each, 6-up leadership, 4-up invuln. One of them's got the heavy flamer, D6 attacks, strength 5 but strength 6 because you're shooting within 12. Have to be shooting within 12 inches. AP -1, damage 1. Rest of them have storm bolters, 2 attacks at 24-inch range, so if you're shooting within 12, 4 attacks each. It'd be strength 5 within 12. They also have sustained hits 1. Sustained hits won't help the heavy flamer, but it will help on the storm bolters. And I gave him the chain fists, which are 3 attacks hitting on 4s. Normally the regular power fists are hitting on 3s. A little harder to hit. Strength 8, AP -2, damage 2. But they have anti-vehicle 3 up. So on a wound roll of 3 or more, they wound a vehicle. And then the sergeant's power weapon, 4 attacks hitting on 3s, strength 5, AP 2, damage 1. So I gave the librarian the fusillade enhancement, which gives the ranged attacks anti-monster, anti-vehicle 5 up, which is pretty good for my storm bolters, since they're only strength 4. If you're shooting at a vehicle, most vehicles have a toughness of 10, so you would need a 6 to wound. But this gives them a anti-monster, anti-vehicle 5 up, and then their chain fists have that anti-vehicle 3 up. This is my big anti-vehicle, anti-tank unit, is the idea behind it. With sustained hits as well, because they're being led by a librarian. So their abilities, they've got their teleport homer, because they are Terminators. You get a little teleport homer token, you set that up at the beginning of the battle. During the battle, if you rapid ingress them, you could do that for 0 command points if they're set up within 3 inches horizontally of that token, and of course not 8 inches horizontally of any other models, which normal deep strike rules there. You can do it for free if you've got the space for it. Fury of the First, so whenever a model makes an attack that targets the Oath of Moment target, add 1 to the hit roll. This is going to be good with your Storm Bolters. They'll be shooting, hitting on 2s. If you're in combat, that makes their Chain Fists hit on 3s like normal Power Fists. Power Weapon on the Sarge is going to be hitting on 2s. Adding 1 to the hit roll, plus you're re-rolling hit rolls, and plus 1 to wound with Oath of Moment as well, so good little synergy there. Moving on to our non-attached units, I've got a Drop Pod as our dedicated transport. Drop Pod has a toughness 7, 3 up save, 8 wounds, 6 up leadership, OC 0. Pretty much it deploys and then it stays on the battle. Gives your opponent something else to shoot at, but they'll have to move around it. They can also charge it maybe for some extra movement. It's not the greatest thing, but it could just get in the way, block some stuff too. Also good because it has Deadly Demise 1, so when they do kill it, if it explodes, does a mortal wound to them. Drop Pod Assault, their abilities. So, you put a unit in it, they're in reserves, in deep strike like your Terminators, and then when they deploy, you can deploy them. Normally deep strike you can't do in the first turn. You can do that in the first turn with these guys. You can drop the drop pod in first turn. Pretty cool. They immediately disembark. Now the question that I've run into, and I haven't done enough research into this yet, but when you deep strike something, it has to be a certain distance away from an enemy unit. But the question is, because the drop pod is deep striking, and it's a transport, the models have to immediately disembark as well when they're dropped. But if that's a disembark move and not an ingress move. So you could probably drop the drop pod in 8 inches from an enemy, and then your disembark, you have to be within 3 inches of the transport. So really you could get whoever's in that 5 inches away from an enemy. Maybe. Now I could be wrong about that. I'm open to being wrong about that. It was ruled against me in the one tournament I went to in 10th edition that I couldn't do that. I don't know. I think that could be gamed. I think that could be gamed a little bit. Combat disembarkation as well. So whenever you drop your drop pod in, your guys disembark, and they can still charge. So if that could be gamed, you could drop them in, set up your guys 3 inches away from your drop pod, so they would only have like a 5-inch charge to make them be pretty cool. Deployment complete, of course, so when it's set up, all your units disembark. You can't go back into the drop pod. It's a drop pod, not a lift pod. So the designer's note on this, the highlighted portions on that model are what's considered its hull. That's what you would measure your deep strike from. The model itself already has the doors flopped out. It's the newer drop pod model. The old one didn't. The old one just had the hole and then the doors open and closed. These are just stuck open all the time. Makes it a little harder to carry, but it's a cool model and I like it. Has a transport capacity of 12 infantry models. Can't take any Centurions, Gravis, Jump Pack, Wolfen, or Terminator models. So your normal Space Marines are the guys that are going to go in this. Now 12 is the exact capacity of a 10-man Infernus squad with a Librarian and an Apothecary attached. So I could drop in a drop pod full of flamers right in the middle of the battlefield if nobody's around, and then just burn stuff. I could also use them, throw in my blade guard in there, still have some space. So if you do your math right, and you normally don't take a lieutenant with your blade guard and Adrax, you could take blade guard, 6-man blade guard with Adrax, and then Vulcan Histan and the company heroes. That would also fit exactly 12. You could do a VIP drop pod and have both of those units embarked in it, drop them in the middle of the battlefield. Probably not what I'm going to do with it, but it's cool that you could have that option. This is my drop pod. Pretty hastily painted it up. I want to go back and add some details to it. Moving on, I've got my Eradicator squad. These are my Melta boys in big chunky Gravis armor. I like them. They're an auto-include in my list all the time. They're my actual dedicated anti-tank, anti-monster. So they're rocking... They've got bolt pistol, of course. I kind of cut it off. They've got Melta rifles, and they've got multi-Meltas. So the heavy keyword, if they haven't moved, or they haven't moved more than 3 inches now in 11th edition, it's +1 of their ballistic skill. That'd make their Meltas hitting on 2s. Strength 9, AP -4, damage D6. Melta 2. So within half the range of that, so if you're shooting something within 9 inches, you add 2 to the damage characteristic of that weapon. So you could possibly be doing, 8 damage on 1 Melta shot. Got 3 of those guys, and then the 2 of them have multi-Meltas. They get 2 attacks, hitting on 4s, strength 9, AP -4, D6, +2 within 9 inches. Shooting within 12 inches, of course, with a detachment makes them strength 10, which would even out the wound roll against a toughness 10 vehicle, making you wound on 4s. Oath of Moment target, add 1 to the wound, wounding on 3s. They're melee, nothing to write home about, just some close combat weapons. Their big thing, though, why they're anti-monster, anti-vehicle. So whenever you're shooting at a monster or vehicle, you can reroll the hit, reroll the wound, and reroll the damage roll against them. So you've got full rerolls against monsters and vehicles. You've got Meltas that, if you're within range, are strength 10. If you're stack on your Oath of Moment, that you're wounding on 3s. Pretty devastating. One of my oldest kits. I gave the Sergeant a hand flamer, which they don't have in their weapon profiles, and I used up a hand flamer that I could have used on somebody else, but I thought it was pretty thematic to give him a hand flamer. Moving on, this is the Inceptor squad. This is the only unit, I think, within my out of all of my Salamander models that I've built. I think they're the only ones with plasma. I don't use a whole lot of plasma, but I like the plasma exterminators. Big chunky boys in Gravis armor, so toughness 6. They're jump packs as well, so they got 10-inch move. 3 up save, 3 wounds each, 6 up leadership, OC 1. They're ranged weapons, one with the plasma exterminators on them. They're assault, which, I have army-wide assault, but if you take them in not this detachment, you can advance and shoot with them. 18-inch range on them, 2 attacks hitting on 3, strength 7, AP -2, damage 2. Ideally, you would be shooting against somebody within 12, so it'd be strength 8 on that. They are twin linked, so you're re-rolling your wounds. If you're supercharging them, it adds another pip of strength, so it'd be strength 9 if you're shooting within 12. AP -3, damage 3. And then hazardous, not as dangerous in 11th edition, more ability to survive if you supercharge them. Close combat weapons for their melee, nothing to write home about. Now, their deep striking ability. So you put them in reserves. When you deep strike them in, normally you would have to deep strike 8 inches away. These guys can be set up 6 inches away from an enemy. So they can deep strike pretty close in. Wouldn't be able to charge the turn that they do that, but they can still deep strike pretty close, which automatically will give you that +1 strength if you're dropping them in within 12, which you would be normally. These are the models. I like them. I have 2 kits of these guys, and I built them before I learned how to magnetize stuff, so I can't really swap out their plasma with the assault bolters. I think the assault bolters were a little bit better in 10th edition with the hazardous not being as scary this time around. I think it was cool. I think it's cool. They're also the only ones with plasma in my army, which makes them unique and fun to me. Moving on, my big Land Raider Redeemer. This is my big centerpiece transport model of my army. Got 2 Flamestorm cannons on it, Hunter Killer Missile, a Multi-Melta, the Twin Assault Cannon. This is the big transport. This is my, one tank. 12-inch move, toughness 12, 2-up save, 16 wounds, 6-up leadership, OC 5. Now, if it's damaged, has 1 to 5 wounds left, -1 to the hit roll. That won't affect your Flamestorm cannons, though, because they are Torrent auto-hit. Flamestorm cannons, speaking of. Pretty scary. D6 plus 3 attacks each, auto-hitting. Strength 6, actually Strength 7, because of my detachment. AP -2, damage 2. You got 2 of those. It's pretty brutal using them with Overwatch as well, because you can shoot all your weapons with Overwatch, and your Flamestorm cannons auto-hit. Hunter Killer Missile, you've got 1 shot on that, so you only have the 1 time that you can use it. 48 inches, 1 attack, hitting on 2s. Strength 14, AP -3, damage D6. It's a Hunter Killer Missile. You're going to be shooting it at your opponent's tank. Also has a Multi-Melta on it. Similar profile to your other Multi-Meltas. Shooting it within 12 would be Strength 10. It's got the Twin Assault Cannon as well. 6 attacks, hitting on 3s, Strength 6, AP 0, damage 1. Shooting it within 12, it'll be Strength 7. It is Twin Link, so you're re-rolling your wounds, and then it also has Dev Wounds, so you roll a 6 on that wound, they can't save against it. Melee weapon has just got its tracks, 6 attacks, hitting on 4s, Strength 8, AP 0, damage 1. Deadly Demise, D6, they blow up your tank, possibly D6 mortal wounds against them. It's got an assault ramp on it, so whenever you disembark a model after making a normal move, you can still charge with whatever's inside of it. So you move 12 inches up the board, disembark. So I'm going to probably run them with my Blade Guard, do a normal move up of 12 inches up the board, disembark 3 inches, that's 15 inches, and then you can still charge with those Blade Guard, get them into combat. So it's transport capacity of 14. Gravis and Terminator take up 2 spaces each. Centurions, I don't have in this list, but they take up 3. So I could run my Flamestorm Aggressors with their captain, would fit perfectly inside this. I can run my Eradicators in this as well. Sometimes I like to run Eradicators with the Apothecary Biologist, who gives them lethal hits, kind of like the Lieutenant does. And then last up, my Outrider Squad, which is normally bike guys. These are my kit-bashed Salamanders on Salamanders. I gave them Thunderhammers. They don't really have Thunderhammers. So here's the actual datasheet. Normally they're on this bike, kind of a goofy-looking bike. I'd rather have them riding lizards. I think it's cool. This is your mounted, cavalry unit. So 12-inch move, toughness 5, 3-up save, 4 wounds each, 6-up leadership, OC 2. Ranged weapons, they've got their heavy bolt pistols, so they can shoot in combat with those pistols. Got the twin bolt rifle strapped onto the sides of the lizards. 2 attacks, hitting on 3s. Strength 4, AP -1, damage 1. Twin linked as well, so re-rolling your wounds. Shooting within 12 would be Strength 5. That would make you wounding on 3s against most infantry is toughness 4, so you would have Strength 5 would be better, wounding on 3s. Melee weapons, they've got quote-unquote chain swords. 4 attacks, hitting on 3s. Strength 4, AP -1, damage 1. I ran out of chain swords to model them with, and I thought the Thunderhammers were cooler, so I gave them Thunderhammers. So far, nobody has complained or demanded that I don't use them. So their special ability, Thunderous Impact. If you charge them in and then make a melee attack, improve the strength and damage characteristics of that attack by 1. So really your strength 5, damage 2 on the turn that you charge an attack with them. Added chains to attach their... I did a lot of work kit bashing these guys, and I like them. I think they're really fun models. Before I go, I forgot that I set up a Ko-Fi, or a coffee. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. I say Ko-Fi, because it's an O, not an A. But anyway, I set that up years ago and forgot about it, and never really used it. So, If you want to contribute to my future Sisters Army, I put up a goal there, and I need to update it with some more stuff. But if you want to see stuff, check it out. I threw my link in the bio. Any little bit helps. If you've got the extra change and want to support me in a tiny little bit, totally feel free to do it. Anyway, until next time, I will see you later.